father was a guiding boy, that's why I'm a unionist, I'm a unionist, I'm a unionist. Amanda! Amanda! Viva TUED, viva! Viva!
TUED is a growing global network of unions working to advance democratic control and social ownership of energy in ways that promote solutions to the climate crisis, address energy poverty, and resist the degradation of both land and people. In late 2022, 70 trade union leaders from 7 national centers, 24 trade unions, and 3 global union federations, altogether representing 27 countries, gathered in Nairobi, Kenya for the launch of TUED South. TUED South is a new trade union platform focused on energy transition, climate policy, and broader issues of environment and worker-led options for low-carbon development. Participants in Nairobi committed to further a public pathway approach to energy transition in ways that can address major challenges confronting the Global South. Among them, rising levels of fossil fuel extraction and use, as well as high levels of energy poverty. The meeting had 3 objectives. One, create a platform for trade union cooperation on issues of energy transition, climate protection, and sustainability. 2, build general agreement around a clear, facts-based analysis of current realities and identify challenges. And 3, commit to developing a public pathway alternative anchored in the defense and expansion of public ownership of energy systems and essential supply chains. What is the public pathway? An approach to a transition to a low-carbon energy system, including restoration of full public ownership of energy, including essential supply chains, long-term energy planning of an economy-wide and cooperative approach to decarbonization, a public goods mandate for reclaimed and existing state-owned utilities, decommodification, ending energy for profit and pivoting towards energy conservation and efficiency. Democratic control, meaning popular participation at all levels, technological pluralism based on facts and rigorous research and development, and public financing, using capital to rebuild state assets and capacities.
We need to propose alternatives. One part of what we're doing is resisting. The second part is where do we want to go? And that's why these meetings are so important, because it's where we want to go has to be shaped by the realities we have in our countries, but also in our regions and more broadly in the Global South. Thinking of that alternative, thinking of what we call this public pathway in very concrete terms as well as in broader terms is very, very important in order to challenge this green structural adjustment. And I think what we're doing here is going to feed back to those struggles that we have locally.
Public-private partnership really do not work in the interest of the people, especially when it comes to provision of public services and goods. So I want to agree with my comrade who noted that for us as Public Service International, we don't encourage issues of privatization or privateers coming into provision of public services. What do you mean by green growth? Why are we actually opposing the word green growth? What is green structural adjustments? How do they actually relate to the former structural adjustment programs? This gives us that leverage to be able to adequately engage with our policymakers.
En fait, les PPP, c'est une forme de privatisation déguisée. Des fois, il faut clarifier ces notions-là. C'est quoi le PPP? Le PPP, c'est de réduire artificiellement la dette publique. Et donc, la réalisation, la conception, réalisation et gestion, c'est confié au secteur privé.
And I think that we must, as workers and as citizens and as communities, begin to discuss how to develop a framework within which we can put or we can situate the public pathway we are talking about.
In response, KPTU adopted the demand for public-centered just transition and has focused on building a solidarity within and outside the union for climate response, and has been discussing ways to promote international solidarity with KCTU. As it is predictable that renewable energy will replace coal power, which has been operated in the public sector, privatization of renewable energy in collaboration between the government and large private companies is taking center of debate in the energy sector in Korea. In response to this, KPTU is demanding integration of 6 divided public power generation corporations into one public energy corporation in order to expand public-centered renewable energy.
What is the best pathway that we need? We need, as indicated, we need to integrate the regions. The regional energy policies must be brought together so that they can take into account the sustainable technologies. We have discussed about the various and shortfall. We also need to use the power pools, East African power pool, South African power pool, Central Africa, and the rest. We also need to focus as unions in using the economic blocks that are there. The East African Community, COMESA, SADC, and ECOWAS, in order to be able to leverage and advocate for a clear public pathway. We can have examples of public-owned utilities which are properly governed and they are able to deliver on their mandate.
If we plan to industrialize, if we plan to have plans for agrarian transformation, that is to say, our rural areas will not look as they do forever. If we have plans to talk about agro-industrial activities, small-scale agro-industrial activities, then that means increasing the potential for electrification. That must be accounted for. We must build the type of infrastructure that can accommodate that. Eventually, they must be connected into the national grid, as is the case in virtually every industrialized country. The only entity capable of fronting that kind of capital and making that kind of long-term investment is the public sector. When people cite the low cost of wind and solar, they are only talking about the generator aspect. That makes sense if you're if you are a developer who is proposing to build an IPP. But we are interested in the full system. And renewable energy systems require additional system components to ensure that they can reliably produce electricity. The link that I want to make to unbundling here is this, is that when people talk about grid flexible technologies, they also talk about the financial packages that can be arranged to incentivize private investment in these new types of services. That kind of arrangement is not required in a public system. Right? You don't have to specifically incentivize generators to provide support services. You must provide an integrated solution when you have a vertically integrated utility. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense.
Tenemos que romper las trabas legales que impiden el desarrollo del Estado a través de las empresas públicas. Las empresas públicas en Uruguay no pueden invertir porque tenemos el manual del Fondo Monetario Internacional que toda inversión se tiene que hacer en el año, se registra con los criterios de caja que se llama. Los privados, el capitalista, amortiza su inversión en muchos años. Hay que cambiar el manual de cuentas públicas del Fondo Monetario Internacional. Pensar una estrategia, como John mencionaba en su documento, de unidades público-público, en nuestro caso con empresas públicas de mayor porte de otros países, para poder adquirir las tecnologías necesarias para el desarrollo. Trabajar en la gobernanza de las empresas públicas, rompiendo la corrupción, luchando contra el cuerpo gerencial, democratizando las empresas públicas. Y por último, hay que desandar el camino y la pregunta que nos hacemos, ¿qué va a pasar cuando finalicen los contratos que están firmados con las empresas multinacionales? Lo que nosotros planteamos es reestatizar esa energía y que quede en manos de las empresas públicas. Y como decimos en Uruguay, las empresas públicas son del pueblo. Muchas gracias, compañeros y compañeras.
It's very important for Global South trade unions to define their positions, right? And TUED South gives that opportunity for trade unions to collaborate, to strategize, and to be able to reach a consensus on what it is that they're trying to reach. So there's a huge importance for that. There's a lack of coordination basically in the Global South, and this offers that opportunity for us to be able to be coordinated.
we have been fortunate to draw on the experience and expertise of TUED, who have actually supported the trade union movement in Trinidad and Tobago in particular. And we've been able to successfully fight back what the government presented as a just transition policy, but was in fact an unjust transition.
We are saying to TUED, unite us. Make sure that there's cooperation amongst ourselves as trade union in the Global South so that we advance the agenda that will ultimately bring our public utility.
El próximo encuentro anual es en Asia-Pacífico, el 2023. Sugerimos que en el 2024 sea en Latinoamérica, en el sur de América y en la Argentina, y nosotros también nos comprometemos a aportar en acompañar con la logística necesaria para tener un encuentro tan exitoso como el que tuvimos aquí en África y poder seguir fortaleciendo un plan de trabajo que ya sería a 2 años, que no es poco en este mundo vertiginoso.
I can see that we, ourselves in this room, we have all the answers in terms of planning the pathway. The issue is, what is the role of the trade unionists back home in your national centers to ensure that all that we have highlighted here, ensuring there is budget, ensuring that we influence the policy, ensuring technology transfer. What do we do as trade unions? That's my question I've been asking myself while sitting down. And I said to myself, we must go back home and ensure we're filling the gaps.
Este encontro reveste-se de capital importância porque tivemos aqui um desfile de experiências, de boas práticas, de luta, de desafios, seguindo a linhagem de que cada país tem sua especificidade. É muito bom ter um trabalho de casa primário. Aqui viemos ter a intenção e o lançamento da TUED South. E ao retorno, obviamente que temos que sentar e conceber o nosso plano de intervenção estratégico em todas as dinâmicas. Divulgação dos resultados aqui obtidos, definir plataformas de apoio a esta iniciativa da TUED e quais são os passos que nós podemos dar com muita cautela, muita determinação, de modo que consigamos atingir os objetivos que todos nós pretendemos.
Many of you are here for the first time in a TUED meeting, others maybe for the second or third time. I think the first time I went to a TUED meeting was in 2013. And then I participated in a number of TUED meetings, both in New York and outside New York. And so I'm not sure if all of you are aware of the importance of this moment. We cannot deny that TUED has been making a lot of effort to include Southern trade unions. First, by translating its documents. Second, by providing translation to the meetings. And third, for setting up TUED South.
Thing, mobilize, mobilize, mobilize. You have to build consciousness so that people recognize their own power.
Solidarity forever.